Naomi moved like a shadow through the decaying skeleton of the old house, her steps muted by layers of dust and fragments of rotting wood that clung stubbornly to the warped floorboards. The air was stale, tinged with the acrid stench of mildew and something metallic that made the back of her throat burn. She had been in places like this before, forgotten corners of towns where the walls seemed to breathe with secrets, but there was something about this house that resisted her presence. The silence was too deep, the stillness too perfect, as if the very air was listening. The walls bore the scars of abandonment. Faded wallpaper peeled away in long, curling strips, exposing the skeletal beams beneath. In the corners, cobwebs stretched like skeletal fingers, thick with the dust of decades. Every now and then, a faint groan would rise from the structure. The sound of old wood shifting under invisible pressure, but otherwise the house lay in a suffocating quiet. Naomi's flashlight beam slid slowly across the wreckage of what had once been a living room, catching on fragments of broken furniture and shattered glass. She ignored the signs of intrusion, the overturned chair, the hollow echo of her own breathing, and kept moving forward, driven by an instinct that told her something in this house mattered. She entered a narrow hallway lined with old picture frames. Most of the images had faded into obscurity, their subjects dissolved into ghostly blurs of color, but one frame hung slightly askew, as if someone had touched it recently. Dust coated the glass in a thick, uneven film. She reached out, her fingers trembling slightly, and wiped it clean. The motion stirred a faint cloud into the air, catching in the light like a swarm of glittering insects before settling once more. The image beneath stopped her breath. Her pulse surged in her ears, drowning out the oppressive silence. The photograph was old, its edges frayed, but the faces were unmistakable. There was Haley, smiling faintly, her posture stiff in a way Naomi had always found telling. Beside her stood Randy, expression unreadable. But it wasn't their presence that turned Naomi's stomach into ice, it was the child between them. A small boy, no older than 5, with the same deep-set eyes and sharply defined jawline as Randy. The resemblance was uncanny, a mirror image in miniature. Naomi's mind churned with questions she couldn't answer. She had known them for years, thought she understood the truths they kept. But this was something else entirely. A secret carefully buried, and here it was, exposed in the dust and decay of a forgotten home. Her grip on the frame tightened until the old wood creaked. She took a step back, her gaze flicking toward the doorway, the instinct to leave clawing at her. Something about the air had shifted. The stillness was no longer passive, it was watching her. The faintest breath of movement stirred the hair at the back of her neck. Somewhere behind her, a sound, soft, deliberate, reached her ears. It wasn't the creak of settling wood or the scurry of vermin. It was closer. Human. Naomi turned toward the hallway she had come from. But before she could take a full step, the door at the far end slammed shut with a violence that rattled the frames on the walls. The sound was final. The sharp metallic click of a lock turning slicing through the thick air. Panic flared in her chest, hot and immediate. She darted toward the exit, her boots scraping against the dusty floorboards. But the handle refused to yield beneath her grip. She pulled harder, metal biting into her palm, but it held fast, immovable. The shadows seemed to deepen. Her flashlight flickered once, then steadied, the beam slicing across the hallway. She turned, scanning for movement, and then she saw him. Randy stood at the far end, half-shrouded in shadow. His presence was wrong here. A rupture in the already fragile reality of the place. His eyes locked on her with a chilling stillness, and he began to move forward, each step silent on the warped boards. There was no sound of breath, no hint of hesitation, only the deliberate, predatory advance of someone who had already decided how this would end. Naomi's heart hammered so hard it felt like it might tear through her ribs. She reached instinctively for anything she could use, a shard of wood, a piece of broken glass, but her fingers found nothing within reach. The beam of her flashlight caught on something in Randy's hand, and her stomach clenched. A thin glint of metal. The faint glimmer of liquid inside a small glass barrel. The syringe was almost invisible in the dim light, but its presence screamed danger. The plunger rested in place, ready, the needle catching the light with a sterile, merciless gleam. Her muscles tensed, the animal urge to flee surging through her veins, but the narrow hallway offered no escape. Randy's movements remained steady, measured, the way a predator closes the gap to ensure the strike is perfect. He didn't rush, and that terrified her more. His control was absolute. Each step calculated to give her just enough time to understand she would not get away. Naomi's gaze darted to the side, to the cracked window at the end of the room, but it was boarded shut. The nails rusted into place. The air seemed to grow heavier as Randy drew closer, the boards beneath him giving only the faintest sigh under his weight. The silence between them pressed in on her ears until it was almost painful. He was close enough now that she could see the subtle tension in his jaw. The slight tremor in the hand that held the syringe, not from fear, but from the energy of impending action. The needle hovered like a promise. The glass barrel catching the light once more before the shadows swallowed it again. Naomi's lungs burned as she forced herself to breathe, the stale, metallic air cutting into her throat. The moment broke without warning. Randy closed the last steps in a sudden, fluid motion, his arms surging forward with precision born of grim intent. Naomi twisted. The flashlight tumbling from her grasp and rolling into the corner, its beam spinning wildly over the walls and ceiling. The room erupted into disorienting flashes of light and shadow. Her shoulders slammed into the wall, the impact rattling through her bones, but she pushed away, trying to slip past him. The movement was desperate, chaotic, but he matched her speed effortlessly. His free hand catching her wrist with a grip like iron. The syringe glinted again, inches from her skin. She fought against him, nails raking against his arm. The air filling with the sound of their struggle, the scuffle of feet, the dull thud of bodies striking the wall, the harsh rhythm of breath. But the hallway was too narrow, his reach too long. He forced her back, step by step, until her spine met the cold, unyielding plaster of the wall behind her. The needle hovered, and in that instant, Naomi's vision narrowed. Her senses consumed by the sharp point that seemed to draw all the light in the room toward itself. Outside, the world remained silent, unaware, as the house held its breath. The photograph she had found still hung crooked on the wall, its image undisturbed by the violence unfolding below it, Haley's faint smile. Randy's still gaze. And the boy between them staring out from the past like a ghost, frozen in time.